All right, we're ready for the next one. And actually, you'll find this one's a little easier because it's in degrees. The numbers are usually a little easier to work with. All right, so we have cosine theta equals negative 0.366. All right, let's graph. Let's just immediately figure out, actually we won't graph it until we know the angle measure, but because this is a ratio, not an angle. But we can figure out which quadrants, right? So cosine, notice that our ratio is negative, right? And cosine is negative in the second and third quadrants. So it is not the first and it is not the fourth, right? So we know which quadrants it's going to be in, right? And all right, so let's go ahead and solve. All right, so if, by the way, if this was cosine theta equals positive 0.366, we'd get an answer in the first quadrant, and then we'd have to solve to get our answer in the fourth quadrant. All right, we're already immediately have eliminated the first quadrant because our value is negative. All right, so now we're going to, so this was step one. I'm not going to write out the steps because we already did that. I'm just going to put step one. Step two, we need to take the arc cos. All right, so arc cos and cosine cancel each other out. I think there should be a parentheses in here somewhere. There we go. That looks a little nicer. They cancel each other out, so on this side we just have theta. Right, on the other side, we can plug this into the calculator, but we need to make sure we're in the correct mode, and I don't think I changed it, so the calculator likes to hide. All right, so we need to be in degrees, so let's go ahead and change that to degrees. All right, so we have 0.366, and I have to do the negative last. And then we want arc cos, so I'm going to do shift, and then arc cos. All right, and so my answer is 111 point, we'll round to 3 decimals, 0.469 degrees. And we are in the second quadrant, right? This would be 90 degrees right here. So our first answer is right here, and that is 111, but I forgot the decimal, 0.469. 469 degrees. All right, so that's answer number one. We need answer number two. All right, so answer number, so make sure when you graph this that you graph this correctly. All right, let's figure out our reference angle. All right. All right, so because before we had a reference, so if we look back at the first one, all right, this ends up being a reference angle because we're in the first quadrant. First quadrant, you are your own reference angle. All right, so I was just able to replicate that. All right, now what we have is the principal angle. This is no longer a reference angle. So you have to be thinking on these. So our principal angle is 111.469. We need to now find the reference angle. All right, so in the first quadrant, you will be the reference angle. In the second quadrant, you need to, and any other quadrant, you need to find the reference angle. So that's one little thing that's different. All right, so let's put that in because that's a different set of notes and a little bit different problem. So in second, third, and fourth quadrants, answer will be principal angle. And if you think about it, it can't be a reference angle because a reference angle has to be less than 90 degrees. So the reference angle for that angle, because it's not going to do us any good to try and do something with an angle that's 111 degrees, the reference angle would be, or in the second quadrant, is going to be 180 minus 111.469. And we're still going to want a calculator. Come on, move. All right, so 180 minus 111.469. So that's 68.531. That's our reference angle. You know it's late. I keep forgetting. 68.531 degrees. All right, that's this angle here. All right, now it's the exact same steps as before. All right, so if you look back here, all right, now we graphed our angle, right? And so this angle here is our principal angle. We need to graph the reference angle in the other appropriate quadrant. All right, so we have our principal angle and our reference angle. We need to graph the reference angle in the other appropriate quadrant. All right, so the other appropriate quadrant would be the third quadrant, right? And it's this angle here that'll be 68.531. All right, so we want to calculate out this angle there. All right, so if you're not in the first quadrant, find your reference angle. Once you've got the reference angle, graph that angle in the correct quadrant. And remember that the reference angle, I didn't draw these as triangles, but it always goes back to the x-axis. So it's the amount of turn from the x-axis to the terminal side. So this right here is the 68.531. Right? If we want to find out what the whole angle is, in other words, the angle that has this reference angle in the third quadrant as its reference angle, we'll have to use the rule for the third quadrant. All right, so we've got one answer already, and I never wrote it down. One answer that we never wrote down, we just put it over there, which is 111.469 degrees. Right. To find the other angle, we're in the third quadrant, so our other answer, if you notice that if we take 180, which is right there, and add the reference angle, right, we will get that whole angle, right? Because notice our angle is past that second, this one over here, is past 180 degrees already. So we have to add 180 degrees to that value if we want to find how much our other answer is. All right, so that would be 180 plus 68.531, which is 248.531. I don't know why I brought a calculator out for that. That I could have had it in my head. I wasn't subtracting. 248.531. All right, so our two answers, we've got this one here. All right, this is one answer. So cosine 111.469, I should put it over here. So cosine 111.469 degrees equals negative 0.366. And let's check that cosine 248.531 degrees also equals negative 0.366. And we're going to definitely need the calculator for that part. All right. So we have a value already in here. And so we want not to be in arc cos, we just want cosine. And if we hit cosine, notice what we get, right? If we round it to 3 decimal places, it's negative 0.366. So now we can feel very confident, because we checked our work, that we have the correct answer, negative 0.366. Just don't have quite enough space. So there's a decimal point there, it's just in a weird spot. There we go. All right, so our two answers are 111.469 degrees and 248.531 degrees. And there we go. All right, so our steps change just slightly when we're in the second, third, and fourth quadrants. All right, our answer is the principal angle. We'll find the reference angle for that principal angle, and then we'll graph that reference angle and use that to figure out the other principal angle. Right? So these have two solutions, two principal angles. Right? And another one is done. Right? And ask questions if you're not sure. Let's try the next one. Now it changes up a bit because it tells us which quadrants we need to be in. So, I mean, the other one's told us too, but notice it's a little bit different. It says negative 180 to 180. So let's just make sure we know where we're supposed to be. And I'm going to end this video, and I'll pick up in the next one.